All right, I want to give a warm welcome to commentator Dezachu. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Of course. We're so excited to talk to you, get your insight on everything that's going on. But I really want to get to know you better, and I think the first thing we got to ask is, Dezachu, what is the origin story behind that name?
I actually changed my bio on Twitter like this morning to explain where the name comes from.
Perfect.
Basically, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Pokemon Yellow, like the game. And I used to go like everywhere with it. It was inseparable, always have a Game Boy with me. And up until the age of like 12 or 13, I just used to always have Pokemon Yellow with me. And then lost my original cartridge one day in what's called a wacky warehouse here in the UK. It's like an indoor play center. And I must have cried for like days on end trying to find it. Wasn't ever going to happen. So I had to buy a new cartridge, start it all over again. And the name just kind of came as a joke once out of one of my dad's friends. He was just like, oh, it's like Dezachu as a joke. And I was like, that is a great name. And it's just stuck ever since. So here we are, 16 years later? Never leaves.
That's right. Well, I know you said you played Pokemon Yellow, but the more serious question is starter Pokemon, fire, grass, or water, what are you picking?
Fire always for me. They just always look cooler.
Yes, we can be friends. The interview can continue. I was gonna cut it if you said anything else.
No, to be safe there. Just take the safe bet. Take the safe bet. Go for the red one. We're all good.
Right. The red one. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Now, I think you're in a very interesting spot because looking at your career, you've actually have a lot of experience in a lot of different esports titles. I know like League of Legends is in there. I think in your bio is like Arena of Valor is in there. Like, tell me what it's like to work in so many different esports and gaming titles.
Exhausting. Being dead real. I mean, to be fair, I never really did any like multiple games at once. They were always kind of sequentially one after the other, so it wasn't like world ending to do. But the constant fear of like jumping into a new game and being the newbie on the block and having to prove yourself again after you just got comfortable in the last game was quite exhausting after a while. And I got asked probably 9 months ago, they were like, are you staying in Siege? And I was like, truthfully, I'm not moving again. Like, learning a new game from scratch is just far too much hassle. So pick the deepest game you can, go for Siege, and just learn it to the nth degree. That's the way to go.
Yes, I was gonna say, like, what was it about Siege then that really drew you in? And now that you're working in it, like, you've committed to it. This is a long-term relationship now.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is. Yeah, I got the ring on the finger and everything already. No, it was one of those games that when you look at it, it has got a lot of depth to it. Like, you look at games, like, I'm not going to sit here and like bash on other games because it isn't all about how deep and how complex they are. Siege just suffer from being a little bit complex, especially from an observer standpoint. But I think if you look back at other games like CS, like, okay, cool, people are running around and shooting each other. It didn't really grab me. Then you come to something like Siege and it's all about the strategy and the tactics behind around, like what walls are you getting open, what vertical angles are you taking, what's your operator lineup. That always really kind of clung to me because of the League of Legends days. So I think it gave a very healthy mix of MOBA plus FPS. And to me, I was like, well, here's the unknown as an FPS. The MOBA side of things I'm very, very familiar with because of League of Legends. And it was just a really natural kind of meet in the middle point, to be honest.
Definitely. I can definitely see that. So you've been, I think, like professionally casting for almost, this is your second year, I believe. Is that safe to say?
Oh, God, no, far more. I think my first paid gig was back in 2015, summer of, I think.
Right, you mentioned that you were like,
yeah, I've been around a long time.
Yeah. Wow, so it's been a long path for you. Like, it's been a long time. And now that you're here, recently you just obviously casted, I think, was it Brazil, the mini major? You did APAC North as well, and Oceania, right? Those were the regions you did?
We did South Asia, Oceania, and APAC North. And although I did cast the main season of LATAM, I didn't manage to cast the major for it. But I had to tune in, had to watch it, had to see how my boy Ace of Pyrite did while he was out there casting, Jackie too. So got a pretty good grasp on all the majors, don't worry.
Yeah, you definitely had your hand in all of them. First off then, following and working in all these regions, you already mentioned before how it could be very stressful following a bunch of different games. Is it the same for following different regions?
Yeah, there is just no way you can keep up with everything that goes on in Siege these days. I think you can go to the Rainbow Six channel on Twitter and there is guaranteed to be a game on of some description.
Yeah.
Like last week was APAC, then we ended up with LATAM, now we got NA this weekend, and the EU is next week. It's relentless. It never ends. And so, yeah, it can be really hard to follow every single region to a very deep level. But I think you can still tune in and get a good idea of what's going on from the casters, from just looking at how the tournaments have gone so far. LATAM was most definitely the most unexpected and wild of the lot, I think, though.
So looking at the results of, LATAM and APAC, would you say you're surprised at all, or is this something that, you predicted?
Oh man, no one predicted this. I think coming into it, everyone was like, oh, team one sat in first place, like dominated the season. There's no way like they go out in the first round. And then they lose both of their first best of threes and a flat out. Liquid, who are in second place, are then next to go out. Then you had, I think, NIP and FaZe sat in third and fourth. And it was only NIP winning at the very end that kind of stopped the normal kind of season flip upside down in terms of end results coming true, because NIP beat them in the grand final. But no, I think anyone who sits there and said to you, oh, I knew this was going to happen, tell them to get lost. They are clearly lying, because no one predicted this being a thing.
Was there a particular player that maybe stood out to you or really impressed you?
It's so hard to pick a player out of this region that isn't a god. Like, there's so many good players there. Probably Muzi's the one that sticks out the most. Top three? I don't know. Probably Muzi, Pala from Team Liquid, and I want to say it's between Nesk and Pino for third. I don't know, but those two were also really, really good. It's exactly the same as what we saw at them at previous tournaments, to be fair, though. The region's just stacked with talent. I think everyone kind of writes LATAM off as being hyper-aggressive and a little bit crazy, but it's because they are that good that they can play that crazy.
I feel like that's the main conversation people have when they compare regions, right? And so from your perspective, you spend so many hours watching these regions. Do you actually feel like there is a distinct skill gap between the regions? And how would you describe the play style differences?
I wouldn't go as far as saying skill gap. I think there are plenty of capable fraggers. I mean, even in South Asia, a region that we have literally never seen on a broadcast before, when they played in the APAC Major last week, we saw a couple of players from that region being absolutely incredible. I'll never forget a player called EX7 for as long as I live. Dude just seemed to click on every single head that came into his sight line. He was insane. Where I think the other regions lack, and I think where you could probably put, APAC is lower, then maybe LATAM. I don't know. It's hard to put LATAM in anywhere, really. Then maybe LATAM, then maybe NAEU. Probably those three regions all fighting in those top three spots now. The big difference you seem to get is team play, communication, coordination coming into rounds, because more often than not, what you get inside of South Asia was players just running around and killing each other for the fun of it, and no one could seem to stop them. Whereas if you had that try and happen in NA or an EU, I guarantee you teams would shut that down before it even got started, because they've got all this coordination behind them. So I think playstyles come down to more on development of regions. It's more on hunting down the roamers. It's more on catching those out that are trying to cause trouble inside some regions, and even in as much as the grand final between Giants and, how on earth am I forgetting the name already? Between Giants and C9 in APAC, in APAC North. Even between those two teams there were so many cases of missed bits of information just leading to rounds being over before they even got started. That those are the kind of things that you'll see, I think, in the newer regions that is really going to improve over the coming year or so.
I feel like at every international event, when you have all these regions coming together, it seems like, the safe bet is always either NA or EU, and LATAM and APAC are kind of like the underdogs. But last year, like earlier this year, technically, at the Six Invitational, you saw them put up really good, like APAC and LATAM put up really good performances. So for the upcoming major, when all the regions are coming together, how do you think the competition will play out?
I think when looking at the last couple of years from SI, you saw Norengo last year, and then we had Fnatic this year. They were kind of surprising everyone. Maybe didn't have the strongest run-ins that they probably could have had, and did get pretty far through as a result, but still can't take away a good performance from some of their players, right? You then look at LATAM, EU, and NA, and although at this stage it'd be so easy to sit there and say, I don't know, it'd be easy to say, well, really, NA and EU at the top and then LATAM. I don't think it's that clear-cut anymore. Like, LATAM looked terrifying. There's a reason why NIP were in the grand final, right?
Exactly.
They were a few rounds away from winning the whole thing 3-0 against SSG, and then the reverse sweep came through. So it's really hard to write anyone off. Like, teams are always surprising each other. And I don't think we still to this day really have a go-to dominant region that destroys everyone else. It just isn't a thing.
So in terms of developing talent in like APAC and LATAM, these regions, is there something that you would like to see more of?
More composure, I think, is probably what I'd say. And we're still in a spot. I mean, admittedly, EUL is probably a great example at the minute with a few teams. There's still one or two players in some of the teams that if you are going to be a genuinely world-beating team, you need 5 incredible players. You can't have 3 players and then 2 that kind of do their job sometimes, and then some games are completely terrible. Everyone has got to be really on form. The best example for APAC for me, looking at APAC North, was in the grand final, oddly enough, between Cloud9 and Giants. Oregon's the map that jumps to mind. Hysterics, running around the map like an absolute lunatic.
Yeah.
Barely ever being shut down. A couple of rounds they did get control of him, but some rounds just left him to his own devices, and he walks away with 2 or 3 kills because they didn't drone him out or they didn't hunt him down earlier on. So there does need to be more coordination in dealing with roamers and aggression, I think, in that region. But that's something you're going to see bubble up over time. Because only now are they finally all starting to play across nationalities to compete against each other. It'll take time. We all know that.
Interesting. I want to look forward to, of course, the EU major, mini major that will be coming up, and you'll be obviously commentating that too. What sort of expectations do you have for it?
Oh man, I don't know. This is a really hard one to call because Rogue are kind of a team that are cursed when it comes to air quotes LAN events. When it comes to these big tournaments, they never seem to do too well. They do make it to all of them, they just don't do too well at them. But this one's online. It's not in a LAN environment, so everyone's like, is this the time they break the curse? Is this the time when they finally go on to win something? Personally, I think it will be. They've looked really good in the main stage. I think people have now figured out BDS, but are kind of coming up as a close second. And truthfully, I don't know what to expect coming out of someone like G2. They can really just step up and shine when it counts. And even Virtus Pro, who started out horrifically at the start of the stage, really warmed up as it went on. So for all we know, Virtus Pro are on this trend upwards where they're going to come into next week and smash everyone, or it's going to go as expected and you'll see Rogue or BDS near the top, right? So it's just so hard to call. But personally, that's what I find super exciting about games, is when you can't predict what the outcome is going to be until the games themselves have actually happened.
I love how you say that, but I'm going to ask you anyways, what would your ideal finals be?
My ideal finals. I think I had G2 versus Rogue down. I did a tweet a few days ago with the bracket in and what I think is going to happen.
Right.
And I'm known as a bit of a witch doctor in EU. Like, I always curse things. Whenever I predict a team to win, they always lose.
Oh, no.
But I put it down as Rogue would face G2 in the upper bracket final, and Rogue would lose, go down to the lower bracket. They'd then come down from the lower bracket versus BDS and beat G2 in the grand final. So personally, I'm riding an awful lot on Rogue taking the whole thing.
Good luck, Rogue. You heard it himself. He said he has a curse on you, on himself. But hopefully that run will come true, because that would be an insane run in the major. But of course, you know, we're out of time here. So thank you so much for giving us your insight. And we'll see if what you said came true at the EU major.
We'll see how cursed I am, hey? Thank you very much.